Hi, my name is Savannah Pyatt, and I'm presenting my slideshow of climate change on a smaller scale, how climate change is affecting Chattanooga, Tennessee. What we'll be talking about in this presentation is what is climate change, what's causing climate change in Chattanooga, regional impacts created through climate change, socioeconomic impacts, taking action, and a hopeful outlook. So, a little introduction is climate change affecting our home of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and ways we can change it. What is climate change? What's causing it? How is that affecting us? And what can we do about it? All of that answered in this brief presentation. Climate change. According to NASA, climate change is a change in the usual weather found in a place. For example, the recent snowfall in Los Angeles or warmer winters and cooler summers. Climate change is basically an out of the ordinary type of encounter with our day to day weather. This is an example of feedback. Feedback is basically the result. When global warming occurs, more evaporation occurs. That results in more precipitation and more cloud coverage. Precipitation and cloud coverage are examples of positive feedback in a feedback loop. This will build more and more momentum in this loop, among other examples, until we get a runaway greenhouse effect. Basically, no return. And we'll talk a little bit more for another example about that later. Climate change. According to NASA, again, they say people drive cars, people heat and cool their houses, people cook food. All those things take energy. One way we get energy is by burning coal, oil, and gas. Burning these things puts gases into the air. The gases cause the air to heat up. This can change the climate of a place. It also can change Earth's climate. The examples discussed in that quote are forcings. They are what force climate change to keep growing. Climate change can be caused by just about anything. Climate change can and would even occur naturally. The only difference is that climate change occurring naturally is a very long process. It would take a much longer time for it to occur without humans than with us here. We have sped up the movement so much that climate change experts have said that we might only have 9 years left to save our planet. Chattanooga. I know there's a lot of stuff on the slide, but I feel like it's very important, so I'm going to leave it and go over it right now. After looking at climate change data in Chattanooga dating back to 1879, there are 6 periods of records between 1991 to 2020. Period of record is basically just like a drastic change. So Chattanooga has been recording its climate data since before Ruby Falls was even discovered. I used to work at Ruby Falls, so that's why I added it. That's a long time ago. So there's bound to be a change, and there is. These period of records are basically abnormal climate changes. For example, one period of record, or POR, is the average number of days that exceeded a temperature of 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That POR was 46 days, with July 1st, 2012 and June 30th, 2012, both reaching a temperature of 107 degrees. Another topic of conversation is the highs and lows over the years. Using March as an example for Chattanooga, Tennessee, the coldest year for March was 1960 at 39 degrees. Fast forward 52 years later, and you get the warmest year for March. The year 2012 had the warmest month of March at about 63 degrees. That's a 24-degree jump in temperature. That is the most drastic change I had found, but it just goes to show that climate change is happening everywhere, and even just Chattanooga's help could kickstart a bigger movement. Add this in here. This is NASA's average yearly temperature for Chattanooga, Tennessee. I graphed it out, and it kind of shows that we're not really accelerating at a fast rate. It seems, I mean, you can even see those two little dots at the top that seem to be almost the same between 1900 and basically 2000. It seems the same. So, from what I've seen, Chattanooga is slowly increasing and seems like a silent killer, um, which, in my opinion, seems worse. I would rather see it happen and try to fix it immediately than not even know it's happening until it's too late. So I just wanted to throw that figure in here to like kickstart a discussion on that. So a flashback. I wanted to add this in here. This is the lost city of Ubar. This is where it once was. That's a picture of it from NASA satellites. So basically, I wanted to use Ubar as a example of what Chattanooga could turn into, or most cities could even turn into. Any city could. So NASA had discovered a city that was believed to be a myth. Satellites had seen old buildings buried under the sand. This lost civilization was found, but not only rediscovered, it was found to have been destroyed due to past climate change. So a drought had been caused due to climate change, and it caused a sinkhole to form and swallow up the city of Ubar. And it was believed to have existed between 2800 BC and 300 AD. Another example of things that have happened in the past due to climate change, the Little Ice Age. Um, so, according to Kajan Uthiek, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, with the Environmental Resources, says that the Little Ice Age didn't have prolonged periods of cold, and the coldest temperatures in the winter were 35.6 degrees colder than they are today. So, it was very cold. It just wasn't long periods of cold. So that's the only thing with people have said that it's not really considered an ice age because it wasn't in one long, prolonged time. But it was 35 degrees colder than it is today. So thanks to many recorded documents from that period, we know that the Little Ice Age started in 1290 and officially ended in 1850. So basically, the same things happened. I kind of skipped that part. It caused basically the same damage low temperatures would today. Ruined crops, froze waters, couldn't really fish, things like that. And like that glacier in the picture, all it has to do is slide a little bit, it hits the whole city. The cold temperatures, it causes sicknesses, all of that type of stuff. Caused a lot of problems back then. Things like that can happen nowadays. And that was just another example of things that can happen now, especially with Chattanooga. We have the river right next to us. Things like that happen here. We lose our river. Regional impacts created through climate change. I added a couple of examples. There's definitely more examples, but I just added a few and I added a figure here to show the median risk ratings for Tennessee. It shows like what's kind of our biggest factors of what's affecting us the most. But the couple of things that I wrote down were tornadoes, precipitation/flooding, wildfires, and droughts. Tornadoes are a big factor when it comes to climate change affecting our area. Tennessee is prone to tornadoes, and with more drastic changes in temperatures, we might see even more. Also, climate change in our area has resulted in more wildfires during the dry months and floods during the rainy months. It's hard to forget when Gatlinburg set ablaze and almost took Dollywood. This is a good example of how climate change can affect the economy in our area. Wildfires around us will destroy tourist attractions and result in less income in our community. And I'll talk a little bit more about Gatlinburg and the wildfires in just a little bit. Socioeconomic impacts. The first example I have is Riverbend. An event that has taken place since 1982 is Riverbend. It always happens in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You can see the picture there with the Tennessee Aquarium right behind it. With climate change on our heels, Riverbend may not be such a fun time anymore. Riverbend usually occurs in the month of June, and as we have seen on a previous slide, June holds the highest temperature for Chattanooga, Tennessee at 107 degrees. A music festival packed with people may not be a fun time or even a safe time with temperatures like that. Losing Riverbend would be a dramatic hit to local shops, restaurants, and even the Tennessee Aquarium. Revenue lost to climate change. So like I said earlier, I was going to bring Gatlinburg and the wildfires back up into the mix. In 2016, a wildfire broke out in Gatlinburg, which is about 3 hours away from Chattanooga. Evacuations were all over the city and surrounding cities. It was said to have been started by two teenagers who were later charged with aggravated arson. 7 people died in those fires and about 15,000 acres were burned. Those pictures, you can even see the one picture is from the Chattanooga Fire Department. I actually know that road. I drive that road a lot. But those wildfires were coming and they were hitting Gatlinburg. And from what I had heard, they were so close to Dollywood. Gatlinburg alone increases a lot of revenue. And a lot of people come from a lot of, all over the United States and possibly even out of the United States to go to Pigeon Forge and go to Gatlinburg and have fun there because Dolly Parton. So without Gatlinburg and Dolly Parton, people might, if they weren't going there, they wouldn't really want to branch out and be like, well, let's check out a little bit more of Tennessee. So Chattanooga. Chattanooga has the Tennessee Aquarium. for all of Tennessee. It is the Tennessee Aquarium. So when you're in Gatlinburg, you're like, what's around here? We can go to the Tennessee Aquarium, but the fires took a big hit on that. We didn't have many people coming. The Park for Dollywood, which a lot of people love to go to and go to Gatlinburg for, was actually closed for a couple days. And according to weatherology.com, more wildfires produce more smoke, which leads to clouds producing less rain, which only leads to a worsening drought and more wildfires. So that is another example of feedback to climate change, which could just cause more and more wildfires in the area, which would then cause more impacts, socioeconomic impacts in our area. It's just one big circle all the time. Chattanooga's future according to climate models. The third National Climate Assessment says the precipitation in our area will increase. They see that there will be a 3 to 5 degree increase by the year 2050, and more days on average will reach temperatures of 95 degrees or higher. A limitation to this, though, is that they had clearly discussed that they are not certain on temperature predictions, not as certain on temperature predictions than they are certain on precipitation predictions. I think I actually crisscrossed those. They are not as certain about precipitation predictions. I did crisscross those. They are very certain on temperature predictions, but not so certain on precipitation predictions. At one point, they actually said that there are areas which usually get a lot of rain, they're saying are going to get little to none rain. So they aren't totally sure. And you can see that around Chattanooga on that map it's blue. That is the biggest amount of rain. So yeah, they aren't totally sure on that. That's weird that only like around Chattanooga would be rain. But the temperatures are another story. They're very certain about the 95 degrees or higher temperatures in 2050. So ways to take action that we can do in Chattanooga. I thought this over, and I think that we could implement bike rental or scooter rental stations in hopes to deter unnecessary driving just a block or two, less emissions in the air. I know when I was in Fort Lauderdale, when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, that's what they did. They had a lot of bike rental or scooter rentals, and I used to do that with my friends all the time rather than driving everywhere. We could plant more trees and around the city to produce more oxygen, maybe even spruce up the area of Chattanooga. People come here for our mountains, for our wildlife, for our forests. So why not make it feel a little more foresty in Chattanooga while also helping out the planet? We already use the Tennessee River as a renewable resource, but maybe adding solar panels to rooftops can help us just a little bit more. Chattanooga is a very tight-knit community. We have so many fun family attractions and unique experiences, working together to create a calmer future in the response to climate change. It's not a sense of what if, it's a sense of right now. Right now, we need to band together and create new ideas to help our community and our planet. We can at least create a good role model for other towns, cities, and states around us. If we can do that, our future will be full of aquarium days and riverbend nights. That's the end of my presentation. I actually have 2 slides of citations, so I'm just gonna leave this one for here for a second, and then I will go to the next one. Citation page, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.